some rail critters.
Yeah.
You know, I'm pretty sure this is copyright infringement, but thank goodness we're not recording. Oh wait, we are.
Just said recording started.
No, no. How's everybody going? Obviously, we're gonna wait for everybody to jump on in, but just as a friendly reminder, you're on Product Lab, which again, this is not meant to be anything heavy. Definitely no sales pitch, nothing like that. And this is Chris and I's kind of monthly webcast, give an insight of what's happening behind the scenes. Really,
Yeah.
product development, research and development, kind of our most embarrassing hurdles and places to get feedback from you all. So genuinely appreciate everybody's on board. With that said, the morning has been a little bit ridiculous, and I appreciate it, Matt. I see you there loud and clear chatting away. What's going on, brother? We got a chance to highlight quite a bit of new research going on using our new format from, if anybody remembers last month, we were kind of having per episode, right? Entire episode on one theme. And some of the feedback we got from you all was let's break this down into multiple segments. Kind of like, late night or anybody else who watches some other, television show broken up in multiple segments. So from the feedback in the team, June's episode is going to be a combination of roughly 5.5 things. So we're still going to be doing straight out of the lab. There's just so much R&D, and it takes a long time for product marketing to get all the details out for a company. So you all will get a first, look at a lot of the new releases. More important than that, you're going to get to see a whole bunch of things behind the scenes. So both new segments introducing a cat and mouse segment, some in the news, just for folks that believe Macs don't get malware. We've got a real personal example that Huntress broke some news last week. So we want to make sure folks understand both how this works on research and development and what we're learning and how we're having to adapt products from what we learned. Chris is going to be demoing. If you didn't see some of the LinkedIn posts, we're actually showing some of the app that we're using to improve not just like your use of the UI. The goal is not to be purely a mobile version of our website, but it's really meant to be a separate way that for those that are maybe working with our SOC managers of security to be able to more rapidly either A, get a hold of our SOC, B, be able to handle whether it's approving, full remediation of the Huntress team. Maybe it's setting new rules to allow us to take auto remediation. So going to be some of that demo, looking for some feedback. And most important to us in the feedback side of the house, so we've got some product confessions. So some things we're doing are working and some things we're doing are not working. So, and if you make it all the way to the end, based on your interactivity, we're going to give away some prizes like we do every month. Chris, did I miss anything? I'm trying to kind of get past the
No,
agenda. I
no,
think
that's
that's pretty
it.
good.
That's it. Yeah. So yeah, like you said, previously we'd try to come up with like a theme and have like a bunch of different parts of the theme. That actually like took a really long time to put together all of the content and stuff. Now we kind of just give you little snacks, right? It's just a bunch of little things and it's easier to put together. I think it's more fun. We get to cover more stuff. So we'll see where it goes.
Gotcha, Chris. So I've got jumping into snacks. Just a reminder, straight out of the lab, the whole goal is what we're cooking up or what's already cooked up. That means everything we're showing here is like some of it is literally in your UI just today. The team's done a really good job of sharing some of this kind of breaking research so you don't have to wait for a whole month. If you got questions, this is ad hoc. So please light us up in chat. We'll try to jump on it as soon as we see it. But straight out of the lab section, if anybody recalls, a couple months ago, we talked about our ability that from the agent, our EDR team was now able to start disabling some of the kind of local accounts. It was something that for a long time we were recommending users. There's some pros and cons of that. And we started adding the ability from the EDR product to do it using, again, feedback for any of you who use Canny. That's our feedback.huntress.com system. Folks just ask like, yo, could you enable like disabling and re-enabling? Like when we see somebody that gets wrecked and maybe their credentials stolen on the cloud side of the house, could you guys actually lock it down from the, vice versa? For instance, ITDR product on Entra being able to lock down the actual endpoint side of it. So, Chris, I know this is like the world's simplest graphic. Do you anything you want to share with this one? Because it's pretty darn new. If anybody hasn't seen,
Yeah.
there's a whole blog on it, but
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's, people called it out in the chat, saying like they were hybrid. We've seen a lot of people who are still hybrid, where maybe they haven't fully transitioned to Entra ID in the cloud. They've still got some on-prem stuff, some older domain controllers. And one of the challenges that we ran into before was we'd see, users Microsoft 365 session get hijacked. We'd lock out the user there. It looked all good, and then the local domain controller would sync back up to Microsoft 365 and re-enable that user, and then our system would be like, "Hey, what the heck happened?" And we'd have to go like disable them again. So after a few rounds of that, we said, "Hey, you know what? We should actually go figure out how to solve this problem so that this doesn't keep happening." And this is that. So yeah, super cool to see these kind of things ship.
Yep, yep. With that said, team, we're not sure that it's anywhere close to done. What we mean by that is obviously it's tested in the lab. It's mostly stable, if not all the way stable. But the idea behind it, there's always ideation on like, how can we take it to the next? We're a real big fan of like not only owning what we do, meaning like we truly understand the problem, but send it. Kind of don't let perfect be the enemy of good. So if any of you are seeing stuff or anything funky along those lines, like let us know. Reach out to your account executive. I, based on what I saw, still have quite a few ideas where I think this could be more bi-directional. So we'll be excited to see how this goes once it actually hits, more of the wild. I see a handful of you already saying like, "Yo, I've already started playing with this." So that's awesome to hear that's going down. Keeping it going. There was some quick updates, Chris. I know SIM has been your baby forever. This is always like more logs, more ingestion. That seems to be our number one thing people are asking for us. Do you want to
Yeah.
throw some details out there? And while you kind of tiptoe, I'm going to try to paste some details I got from the SOC earlier today. So take this from me,
Oh,
and I'm going to
nice.
make
Okay.
us a slide.
Yeah, so we continue to add new data sources to SIM. That's going to be a forever thing, ongoing. We get different requests, and we usually take those from feedback, but we also get them from people will talk to a sales rep and say, "Hey, do you have support for this? Do you have support for that?" And we just try to figure out which ones that people want and then prioritize them that way. So two of the ones that we've worked on in the last month were actually Cloudflare logs and Wiz logs. So these were for us also beneficial because we use them and we are our own SOC. It's kind of like self-insurance, I guess. And so through Cloudflare, we can monitor, things about like DNS requests and all that kind of stuff. You can monitor the web application firewall, zero trust if you use it. Through Wiz, you can get all the alerts about like a new vulnerability detected or the vulnerability remediated or this thing changed status to that. And so, we use Wiz a lot because we also have a lot of workloads in AWS, and so that helps us. And then the last one that's really cool that we've been working on for some time actually is we now have some support for extended retention in SIM. And this has been a request from a number of people for either HIPAA compliance or PCI compliance. Um, we wanted to start simple. So instead of just giving you two separate knobs and saying like, how long do you want to store data in hot storage and how long do you want to store it in cold and you having to figure out all this stuff, we just said, hey, can we just put together one simple plan that will meet both PCI compliance and HIPAA compliance, and let's see where that goes and see if that's good enough, and then we'll kind of pivot from there. And if we need to break it down and offer different plans at different price points, then we'll see. But you can now get this. So if you're interested, talk to your account executive. They should be able to generate a quote for this, and we'll get you hooked up.
So, dude, you gave me just enough time, and I'm glad we finally. I know we got kind of roasted in the beginning of like, it's great you give me some of this time, but I need 7 years compliance. I'll be real. I didn't fully realize some of the compliance requirements for some data was so stinking long. So I again, that's one of those places that kind of thankful the community held us accountable. Um, Chris, I'll give you the other one, by the way, that where your team kind of hit me up with is they said, look, not only are they handling a lot more in the SIM when it comes to the data collection, but they said detections are on fire. So for any of you, even if you don't use the Huntress SIM, that's not what this is about. This is about like actually sharing like what we're learning, seeing in the wild, and wanted to share with you guys of where I asked the team, where's the most success you're seeing using SIM to augment other products, meaning augment your EDR, augment your, prevention layers, whether it's, allow listing, next gen antivirus, et cetera. And so for any of you who are super geeks out there, I just wanted to give you a list of our most productive places that we're still augmenting. Look how much PowerShell is still being used. Like, I was pretty surprised in 2025 that this was still the case.
Yep.
But what's wild about it is, look, all day, every day, still some scheduled task creation, still some, silly remote, WinRM is used for lateral movement, obviously some credential dumping, but just wanted to share with you in case you're rolling your own. This is the direction that, like, across, millions of endpoints, et cetera, and the logs that we're seeing for endpoint side of the house, this is where we're seeing a ton of detection benefits. So
Yeah.
anyways, pretty
This one,
exciting.
this one was actually a tricky one to set up. So the way that like the PowerShell script blocks come through is they get logged to a Windows event. But a Windows event can really only be so large. So what happens is they get chunked into many different Windows events. Um, Sometimes it could be three. I've seen it as high as 200. And what happens is we get those in and we have to reassemble them into one big PowerShell script block so that we can run detections across it. Because you would never want to run a detection that's looking for maybe two things in the file, and maybe based on where it was chunked, it sees one but not the other, right? So we had to do all this like reassembly of them. It's actually kind of painful for us. It takes a lot of effort to do, so it's not easy. Just FYI.
So, dude, appreciate you doing that. And for those of you who are just calling out, like, loving to see the detections list growing, I want to be like clear, like, this is not a one and done. This is a living thing. So, only wanted to share kind of what's really popping off. I hope if you're rolling this your own, your detection capability should be just more broad. With that said, a lot of the time we learn earlier detection in SIM, but not everything goes in a log. So I asked the team what was going down on the endpoint, and they wanted me to share a couple things in regards to minor updates, and then kind of one obvious but bigger thing on ransomware. So I'll go back into a little bit of sharing. Any of you who are using the Mac side of the house, there's just a lot of these updates. If you notice, improved configuration, both different command line status. Mac is an interesting environment. So it's one of those for us that, even though it's by far, it's a fraction of the size of the amount of Windows out there, the people who use them often really matter. They're often technical. They could be leadership. Everybody else gets a ThinkPad. So just want to give you a heads up that we're not easing or, pumping the brakes on development there. There's a lot more to go. Same thing when it comes to Windows agent side of the house. Like, even old school stuff that we were talking about, ransomware canaries is a feature we started writing in 2018 when GandCrab ransomware group really started wrecking SMBs. And the part that I want to share with you is some of these minor bug fixes and PowerShell deployments are helping us not only get ahead, but there's kind of like a what was old is now new again thing happening, where people have moved some detection logic over, tradecraft changed. Now they're rotating back to kind of hybrid flavors. And so you've seen, even in the detection logic, lateral movement, new techniques for moving laterally, a lot of things that are just kind of using legitimate apps and other things that, while the old school PS exec techniques are not as sexy, there's all kinds of new telemetry we're discovering, sometimes what host they come from. So these are largely minor updates. I wanted to give you on the ransomware side. It sounds small, but take a look when we get data behind the scenes, and this is, notice it's us testing, but we're looking through here on OneDrive, right? So somebody's got some roaming profile action going, crazy different directory, and silly.exe is just the encryptor. We've noticed that by adding additional telemetry, and we're always able to monitor like ransomware canaries, that's what these random folders are right here. We can see these doc files get encrypted, and notice just the change of not only the file, you'll see that the file name gets changed where it actually includes maybe a new file extension at the end. What we realized is, although we were always able to detect new file extension, et cetera, we've really been pulling the thread on what can we do when we know these high confidence things are happening. And it turns out, even looking backwards at pivoting as soon as an action happens, like a new file extension, whether no matter what the ransomware group is, that when we start bundling more of these similar behaviors that we've talked about before, using a whole bunch of low and kind of medium level things to bubble up kind of more high level detections and discoveries, it's actually turned into some pretty neat. So not only, brand new detections, so even Huntress is not perfect. And so some of these simple things of expediting detections have allowed us to kind of pivot towards new ransomware groups that are actually doing a good job of going kind of from initial access to very quick ransomware. And again, that's kind of rough. That's like going from showing initial symptom that you're sick to kind of stage 4 cancer really quick. And so, even for us, it's been this kind of back and forth. But just sharing these little micro adjustments can sometimes, 27 different places tuned with 9 different detections. And by the way, this is on like a 2-week period. So these are these little micro adjustments, but if you happen to be one of the, 9, this is a big deal. So I know this doesn't sound like it's kind of where you get a certain diminishing returns and you say, oh, well, I've got 99%. Well, that last 1% can really matter. So anyways, just want to share that EDR team is just continuing between working with the SOC and doubling down on that end. Chris, I don't want to go too long. Do you want to fly through some of these SAT updates? I know they're quicker, and then I'll kind of grab the kind of
Yeah.
sexier SAT update.
Yeah, so for those of you, and I know there are many who use Google Workspace, previously we had to just email the phishing emails just like any other email would come in. Oftentimes they'd get just grabbed in the email filters, which is good, but obviously doesn't help you actually test any of your users or check that box. So for Outlook for a long time in Microsoft 365, we've actually been bypassing all of those email filters and inserting emails through the API. We now have that functionality for Google Workspace. This is in beta, so if you are a Google Workspace user and you would like to test this out, get in touch with us. You can just hit up support, and we'll get you on the list to get you in the beta. Outlook, there's a button in Outlook that will allow users to report phishing. So when they get an email and they think, "Hey, this looks like phishing," and they try to report it, because there are various versions of Outlook. Some of them are the old classic style. Some of them have like the I can't think of what they call that new version of the bar right now. It worked in some and not others. It should now work everywhere. And one of the things that we've heard actually feedback from you all on is, when you have somebody who's maybe in a country that is not the US and they get an email that is very clearly only in English and all these kind of things, it's really easy for them to pick out that it's a phishing email and somebody's testing them. So we now have support for, locale specific phishing emails. So you can do different things like, in Canada, sending an email that says, "Hey, reset your AT&T password." Probably doesn't make as much sense. But if it said like, "Hey, reset your Rogers password," maybe people are clicking on that. So yeah, that's what I got. What'd you find?
Yeah, this is post-incident training. So if you notice, the platform is starting to combine with a lot of things, 1 + 1 equaling more than 2. That's a big part of our theme this year. And what we've learned is, when you find something nasty, like we can obviously see in this case, hey, look, evidence suggests that somebody shady came in from this IP, the typical NordVPN. Somebody probably got hit by an info stealer, and their credentials, or maybe they actually stole the whole cookie, able to get past 2-factor authentication for that little period of time. And so while being able to recommend what happened, we're learning that 1 + 1 equaling more than 2. Well, why not add not just the remediations where we tell you what we're going to do? We're starting to share more of that recommendations and best practices. And our goal is to tie these recommendations and remediations centrally to a rules engine that we can do more of this autonomously. We talked about that a little bit last month, but you got to build the foundation for it first. So with recommendations, take a peek at what we've added now. So we've actually added now in this incident where we realized somebody got hit with an adversary in the middle case where somebody actually stole the credential, logged in. We were able to say, this is the user that got pwned. This is the user that lost their creds. Hey, if you're interested, we have content that's perfect for this. You're already in SAT, etc. And who do you want to be able? Do you want to do just this learner? Do you want to manually add extra learners? Or do you want to do the whole organization? If you saw this happen, like a whole phishing campaign across an entire client, and being able to click the single button, create assignment with one click, voila, you got it teed up in your actual, kind of awareness training portal there. So pretty neat that this is coming along. We think there's a lot more potential in recommendations, obviously different episodes, but even more recommendations of like, can we harden endpoints? Can we harden your M365 environment? Can we harden others, different things? So this is kind of a early sign of more to come, but really excited to see the SAT team really pushing this boundary. I think this is how I know folks are in love with like AI, but I really think the real hotness is happening under the hood with automations and workflows. And I really think this is how it's supposed to go. Not that AI can't be sexy, but we're really trying to lay the foundation for a lot more of this here for you. Not going to move into the full RPA world, but imagine exposing some of these. And obviously, it's opening up APIs that we could expose for some of the kind of future of whether it's RPA or agentic, whether it's, using and controlling and teeing up more of this stuff automatically, not needing a human. With that said, Chris, we had a lot. Team is obviously cranking. I'm feeling really good. I think that based on the feedback, it seems like we've done well, but we're 20 minutes in. I was going to just share a little bit in this cat and mouse, this segment being really dedicated to, hackers are going to hack, Huntress is going to hunt. It's not going to stop, but I wanted to expose some new hotness that's happening, really kind of getting around kind of maybe yesterday's cat, even some of it kind of kicking our own asses here. Are you cool if I take this section and maybe kind of
Yeah.
throw the next section to you?
Yep. Let's do it.
All right. So for those of you not familiar, right, starting with the cat circa 2020, conditional access is super hot, right? It's the idea of just, can I take many different signals and be able to, allow or limit certain accesses, right? It's pretty darn simple. And like, no, Microsoft is not quoting Shakira with some whenever, wherever. Generally speaking, what they're saying is most conditional access, even in 2025, is really, is it geolocation and what time of day? I know that there's a lot more you can do with signals, but that's kind of what most people are using conditional access for it. So of course, threat actors said, yo, the mouse said, hold my beer. And if any of you have read our 2024 threat report, you know that to get around conditional access, shit got crazy. The use of VPN access to log in. Sorry, Jonathan, with the Shakira joke. The use of VPNs got really out of control. And with that, you can see just about anybody and everybody was saying, now that I got your creds, yes, you might have blocked me out, only allowing US or maybe even getting more specific than that, but I've got a VPN for that. And so again, this said, okay, well, the cat had to respond. If anybody recalls, we had like the most obscene blog titled Mommy Does Santa Like NordVPN. There's some double entendre there. But where I'm going with this is it was a kind of winter holiday update that we really started better tracking and adding functionality for you to really restrict some of these, like where you are going to go. And we even allowed time level access to like, hey, somebody's traveling abroad. Yes, we use NordVPN, but please allow them to use this for a week and automatically burn that rule off after 7 days. We think that's a really important part of keeping these, just like firewall rules. You get 10,000 of them, you can't manage them. So we released this and upgraded, the cat here with the ability to do this. And again, sorry, can't read chat today. I'm not in a mood. And the mouse did mouse things. Rich, our PM that leads ITDR, said, well, okay, threat actors have clearly started watching that roll your own cheap VPN proxy in 5 minutes video on YouTube. And why we say this is we have started drastically noticing not that hackers are not using the VPNs, but in addition to using VPNs, the more qualified teams are starting to roll their own, kind of their own homemade VPN and proxy software. So this is, if anybody's been around long enough, like this is where it started. Before VPN software was commoditized, people would just go hire a VPS, a virtual private server, and they would stand up their own open VPN client on here. And unfortunately, this is exactly where it went. So we actually had on social media, if anybody wants to catch the back and forth, some folks were just asking like, why not just like alert anytime you see data camp, which if anybody's familiar, data camp is often abused. It's not quite a bulletproof hosting provider, one of those shady ones in a country that allows just about anything. But we're seeing a lot of this where because of the VPNs, there's a lot of legitimate use. And even more so than something like DataCamp, where a handful of these over here were malicious. But there's actually quite a lot of legitimate, you see Swiss logins, French logins, US logins, all coming from the same autonomous system. And so where I'm going with you, I just want you to be aware that this is how fast the cybercrime groups are moving. You don't have to go and respond to this. That's Huntress's requirement if you're using Huntress on ITDR. But if you're rolling your own, you need to be aware, like, this is the type of threat intel that you need to be reacting to right now, because what we're seeing is they're not just using common stuff like autonomous systems for DataCamp, but of course they're using DigitalOcean, High Velocity, Azure, AWS, GCP. We just want you to be aware that the VPN provider alone isn't enough. And the reason I want to tell you this is this here, like, we don't have this perfectly solved. Like right now, Huntress is currently tackling this with a ton of product analytics and a ton of SOC experts working with the product team. It's kind of like a Venn diagram where most of it's overlapped. This here gives us a really quick like edge that when we see something as humans, those same people are the same people working on the products detection side of the house. But I want to make you aware of, like, this is definitely not solved. So like stay tuned, stay vigilant. We want you to know that this is a like active cat and mouse scenario, that threat actors realize that, like, it's all about your identities. It's all about your dumping quickly with an info stealer, your cookies and credentials. And we're seeing this, that IP reputation and things like this alone just are still insufficient. So what I'm saying is perfect prevention here, or zero trust, is not enough when they're abusing legitimate IP space. So this is where detection and response has to perfectly couple with prevention. It's kind of like preventative medicine. You want to find it early before they actually send 10,000 emails from your identity, or before they steal your, accounts payable information. That's the stuff you want to be able to detect. So I hope this section of cat and mouse was useful. And again, I'll come back to chat when I'm not giggly, but want to make you guys aware that this is what it currently looks like. All right, Chris, you want to jump into, because this is one of those with Mac malware being so popular. I think this is a real good session. This is one that everybody says, but my Mac doesn't get malware. Everybody on this live stream knows everybody gets malware. It's just about how much effort they put into it. We don't often see North Korean actors. So I think it's important to kind of jump into this.
Yeah. So yeah, we put out a blog last week. And basically it's a quite a long, quite in-depth blog about all the stuff and how we kind of found one thing and continued to pull the thread and go from there, and we found this thing and that thing and the next thing. And ultimately what we realized was this was North Korean attackers basically going for Bitcoin, right? They love Bitcoin because they have a lot of financial restrictions in the global finance community where they can't send or transfer money between all these things. But with Bitcoin, they can get around a lot of that. So they go after those folks. And this one was pretty interesting.
I mean,
It
it
got
blew up on the news big time, right?
yeah. Yeah, it got a good amount of coverage. Not only because it was North Korea, but they're doing a lot of AI deepfakes. And it's not just like, oh, hey, here's a picture of me that's like AI generated. It's like live Zoom feeds where the person you're looking at is not actually the person you're looking at, because in real time, AI is, taking and changing their voice to sound like somebody else, and mapping a face and facial expressions to it and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty crazy where this technology is going. And you've seen a bunch recently of companies who've come out and said, "Hey, we accidentally hired a North Korean, hacker to be on our IT team because they used a whole bunch of AI deepfakes and all that kind of stuff." So it's a big problem for sure.
So Chris, I know, part of this, right? Trying to simplify the attack chain. I think that was our goal today, to make sure folks understand. And given a background, nation state threat actors are not what we see most often. I would say it's probably somewhere between 80 to 100 to 1. Like, you got to be somewhat interesting. However, what's interesting about this for a country, the Hermit Kingdom, who's kind of doesn't have a lot of access to great income, coin theft, crypto theft is really, really popular. And what's interesting about this is this was an actual MSP client. A lot of people think of MSP clients or, oh, they're sub 100 employee companies that aren't overly sophisticated. But to be honest, this was a very sophisticated, kind of co-managed setup. Chris, you want to walk through this? I mean, people can read, but I think without
Yeah.
understanding this, it makes the next couple like bits of info that we want to kind of share intel with, it makes it harder to understand.
Yeah, so this is kind of what I was talking about in terms of pulling that thread, right? And you start to find things, and as you analyze them, you'll see that, oh, this is downloading a thing and installing it from this URL. And it's like, okay, well, let's go grab the thing at that URL and pull that down. And then we start to analyze that and figure out like what is it doing? Where is it going from here? And how does it link to the next thing? And we found so many things in terms of like it started with Apple script stuff, but we went to Go implants and Go backdoors. There's keyloggers involved, info stealers involved that are there to try to grab whatever creds are available in the browser so they can get not just local access to the network, but what third-party SaaS apps are you using? There were additional droppers, things that installed other implants and other things that were intended to be detected as malware so that you'd think you cleaned up the infection when really you didn't. So there was all kinds of stuff. And, if you're interested in this, I would say go read the blog. I
Yeah,
think you
it's
will
in
be
depth.
blown away by just how much stuff is in there. And, Kyle, if you want to go to the next page, this really gets to my point that I wanted to bring up. And we often are light on this topic, but they are not like us, right? Not everybody is the same. There's a lot of vendors out there who just kind of build their stuff on top of somebody else's software, who just kind of take hashes and say they're bad or wait for somebody else to identify stuff. We actually go and do the things. And if you want just to see what I mean, go look at that blog post, right? We reverse engineered malware. We pulled down things. We figured out what it did. We understood how to decrypt the payloads. We identified all kinds of stuff. And this is why not all vendors are the same. And, I see some stuff on Reddit sometimes and it pains me because I'm like,
It actually came in a product
they're
lab
pretty good.
feedback. They said, hey guys, I don't think people realize just how much technology and how much expertise they're getting behind the product. So if you all, I mean, I hope there's not salespeople on this. Maybe there are salespeople. I have no, judgment against that. But the point that I would share at the end of the day is oftentimes people don't realize the level of sophistication that you're partnered with. And that's
Yep.
not like a pat on our back. It's like our job is to make you successful. That's why we share the R&D. That's why we want your feedback because we don't always get this right. But this is a great case where the level of reverse engineering to be able to break something like this first, there's not a whole lot of that exists. And so if I keep poking this, part of what we do and what I like about this product lab is it's about a community effort. So oddly enough, Huntress only pulled the thread, but if you all didn't catch this follow-on blog, this is the team at Validin. Not only were they kind enough to credit through here, but if you guys want to see like the level of like how we as a community to not like hide threat intel, but to really like help build each other up, like it's really a huge moment. And this team went and pulled the thread of just the domain reputation against some of their historic data. And I would argue their blog is just as comprehensive, but looking at a completely different data set from the actual DNS resolutions to pivots to all kinds of different info. So again, it's in the news, but I hope this helps you all kind of understand not only just like the depth of bench that you have, but screw that, like from the marketing perspective, this is the type of like when we cooperate together, you guys roast us when we get something wrong, vice versa. When we come in and, for instance, have some ideas and push the industry on, we think it needs to go this way. The end result is actually like wrecking threat actors here. So not just threat actors, but like quite literal. This is some of the team that's attributed to that 1.4 billion with a B dollar Bybit, heist. So like, anyways, if you're looking for a feel good as almost close to Friday, like thanks. Without you guys and without partnership, we would not have been able to wreck something like this. So it's pretty ridiculous and exciting. So
Yep.
Anyways, Chris, I'm good with this one. You feeling good about in the news? Anything else you
Yeah.
wanted to? Because I
Yep.
think this is my favorite one to get feedback. I've been watching chat. I've got my giggles under control. I'm looking for some feedback though from the team of where they want this to go. So, Chris, with you kind of breaking Zoom earlier, are you okay if I just tee you up with the basic screens and then
Yep.
I don't, if you've got demo
Yep.
you want to show, we can do it. I think it's important for us to have the conversation though. I don't want to walk
Yeah.
away from this.
Absolutely.
All right. Here's some of the visuals I got for you.
Ho
If you've got others you want to
ho.
screen share.
There it is. Yeah. No, I got some stuff. We'll do some stuff. So this all came from, something that we've been talking about for a while, which is, we send, whenever we find incidents or escalations or stuff, we send things to your PSA, and we send you tickets and we send you emails and all of that stuff. And if you're like me, you get a lot of emails and you get a lot of other stuff. And so if you're not at your desk, it's easy to miss stuff. And so we said, everybody carries around their phone pretty much, right? Whether it's iPhone or Android, you got your phone. How do we get you a native notification on your phone so that you get that ding that's like, hey, there's a thing from Huntress that we need you to look at? And so we really set out not to just take our Huntress same dashboard and say, what would that look like if you just had a much smaller screen? But actually think through the process and the use case of, okay, what if I'm not at my desk and I get a Huntress incident? Can I respond to it? Can I see what happened? Can I run remediations? Can I request that the machines be isolated? If Huntress isolated some machines and I'm like, oh crap, that was a false positive, that customer's having downtime, can I de-isolate them? Can I make an easy, quick phone call to, the Huntress SOC and ask them more questions about it? These are the use cases we're thinking through. And these are screens, and I wanted to put a couple of them on here to show you kind of how we've reimagined some of this stuff. So you can see the first three are much more mobile friendly. This fourth one is actually just the regular page, but squished down to a mobile screen. And so what we're doing now is going through these and taking pages like this and then really extracting and saying, okay, based on that use case, what kind of stuff needs to be on here? What kind of stuff is overkill? How can we format it in a way that's easier, with your fat fingers to touch the right thing and not 8 different links? Like how can we do all that? So it is going, for those of you who are wondering if it is just a screenshot. It is not. It is oh man, this will never work. It is a
Oh,
legit app on my phone.
here, I'm going to stop sharing just to make your face big. And oh, it is real. This is
There you
real
go.
too.
It's a real app. It actually exists. I can touch it. It's not a screenshot.
Can you touch it? Oh, there we go.
Oh, I got
You
logged
good.
out. But there you go. So it exists. If you would like to test this out, Apple allows us to get, I think, 1,000 people in kind of a beta before we release it into the App Store for anybody to download. So if
Chris,
you
I'm
would
going to need
like
you to
to
put a
test
light
this
and
out,
a flashlight on that to prove that was not a deep fake. We need to see some reflection.
you're right. You're right.
What else do you got? I mean, Chris, the
Would have been
biggest
a
part
deep
of this
fake.
app to me is even some of this kind of feels a little bit like the UI. I think we've got a lot of work here to be able to make sure like user experience. I think some of the folks called in like unlike people in some of the chat, I don't like dings at night. I also, if I'm having a real bad day, notifications, god awful, they got to be batched up. And obviously, I think we have a long way to go. Chris, I'm curious. I started a holy war while you were chatting. I don't even know if you saw it, but like,
No,
is the
what'd you
first
do?
version of this going to be iOS or Android?
Oh, so the first version is iOS.
Oh shit! You got about half and half, by the way. So you're
And
gonna piss off the audience.
Android will come very quickly after. So we've used a framework called Hotwire that basically allows us to still mostly provide it as a web application that's served from our servers, but gives us the ability to do native things on the phone, like send you notifications and stuff. And that Hotwire framework works for both iOS and Android. We just had to do one first, so we went with iOS because that's what I got.
So
Um,
Kenneth
but
wants to
yeah.
know who he can email. Kenneth, this is actually Chris himself working on this one. So you can yell at him right now, threaten him. But I
Yes.
think the point that you shared, right? This framework should allow very, very quick porting, right?
Yeah, yeah. The framework was made for both iOS and Android, and so like you have to write a little bit of code, right? It's Kotlin instead of Swift, but the functionality is very much the same. So if you are interested in this and you have an iPhone, just email support, ask them to be added to the um, iOS mobile app beta, and they're going to need your email that you use for iCloud, not your email that you use to log into Huntress. So if your phone is your personal email, and we need that one because I have to add you to this specific group, and then you'll get an email from Apple that will say, "Hey, do you want to download this thing?"
So, Chris, there's a
And
lot
mother's
of
maiden name, social security number, bank account information, all that. You
high
have to send
school
all of that.
mascot. Has anybody seen a high school mascot in a long time? I feel like I haven't.
Do schools have money for mascots?
I don't know. I don't know. Oh, Ramon saying yes. Um, Chris, I went to try to live share it just because we're going off cuff just a little bit
Yeah.
here. I thought we had dark mode coming soon. Do we have dark mode? How do you see dark mode? I thought I get to see it,
There
but
is some dark mode. So the reason dark mode is not turned on for all users yet is not all pages have been converted. So it results in what I have heard, and I kind of like this term. It results in us flashbanging our users, where on one page it's all dark and it's nice and it's great and your eyes feel good, and then you click another page and it's white and you're like, what happened? So yeah. So we haven't given that availability to everyone yet because yeah, it's just not fully done yet, but it
with me
is
not knowing,
in
how do I turn
progress.
it on? I'm in my settings right now in the Huntress portal. Is there like some simple thing that I could like
There's
go
like this
live and hopefully
if
not
it's
leak data?
enabled for you, there's like a little thing at the top. It looks like a moon and a sun kind of overlapping in the very top bar at the right.
I'm not good. If you have
Uh
access, go
we
ahead
don't
and
have it.
share it. It looks like some people in here. It looks like Hoff is saying, "Hey, he knows it. It's
Yeah.
there." So,
Yeah, some people have it where we've talked to them and kind of like set the expectation of like, hey, not all the pages are there yet. But yeah, not everybody has it for that reason.
oh my gosh, it's so accurate though. Flashbang the hell out of me. So demo time was good. I think this brings us to kind of the next part of the confessionals. And I guess, Chris, not to make this overly like serious, but we don't always get things right. So I'm going to start by confessing we don't always get things right. And part of our product confessional today is we haven't been the best at explaining what escalations are, what the intent was. Once people get a description of it, it's like, oh, that makes more sense now. And we really need some more feedback because we are both simultaneously making people really happy. And our support is occasionally showing like our CSAT is like 98%. That 2% has a lot to do with what the hell is this escalation? And so we're trying, like I said, that little bit matters.
Why
So
did
I'm
your
curious.
emoji look like two hands high-fiving and not hands praying?
I mean, it's supposed to be
Right? Like,
praying.
because it's like to the side. It's like,
You didn't know this is a high five. This isn't praying. That's a high five emoji.
is it really? Did you change it out?
No, no, no. It
Oh.
just depends on what you're doing or what, Microsoft doesn't like praying, I guess. I don't know. So we're curious, what do you think of when you hear us say, "Hey, team, I sent you an escalation." I don't want to taint anymore. We purposely left this here. Um, can't read chat. I'm reading about flashbanging. I
Yeah,
can't
yeah, yeah.
keep this serious today. Uh, lash bang. That's the Huntress eyelashes. We're not going here.
Oh,
Okay.
geez.
So for those of you, there is real serious conversation about this, that our whole idea with the word escalations is, look, there's sometime we can't possibly answer a question, right? Like a good example, new user shows up, in a foreign country on holiday, and we have no clue that they're supposed to be there. There's only so much we can investigate when that happens. And it's not that we want to annoy you. I don't want to be Huntress, the alert company. I want Huntress, the set it, forget it. And the only time you hear from us is when there's an actual problem. But there is some real cases. Like most of the time, we can identify oh, that's not Screen Connect. That's somebody's rogue Screen Connect. And even if they did something cute with the signing certificate, we know that somebody else's Screen Connect. The server is pointing to one that doesn't match yours. Huntress doesn't need to bother you on that one. But when it's truly just a user, maybe some of you talked about earlier, crap, you rolled over from your local ISP to Starlink. Well, we've seen history, we've seen reputation. We know you've been at Starlink long enough. Some of that we can infer, but sometimes it's the gray area. When you're 70% sure, that's not a very good, guessing isn't a very good way to approach cybersecurity. So our idea on escalations was, hey, look, I need to escalate a question to you. And Chris, you and I have come up with other words before that we think this needs to look. Do you remember
Yeah.
what they are? I really can't remember at this moment.
Inquiry is the one that it's not great, but it's just a little bit closer to like, hey, it's a question. Notification we've discussed, but like really the point of the escalation is like, hey, we need to answer from you. We need more context of like, did you intend to do this? Did you not intend to do this? Is this normal? Sometimes we see machines with two totally different RMMs on them. Sometimes we'll see automate and we'll see something else. And when we ask the question, it's, oh, yeah, that's a co-managed thing. And so we have an RMM and the customer has an RMM. Oh, okay, cool. But then other times we see it and it's like, did you intend to have two screen connects here? I feel like probably no. So there's some of those. We see it with like Bitcoin, where people have like a Bitcoin miner and we're like, is this an attacker or did you intend to put this there?
So I
And
do
like
want to
getting
be,
those answers, we needed some formal way to do it.
yeah, I want to be clear to chat. Like, we don't think the right answer is doing away with escalations. We think some of it is our bad on like probably not doing enough education. We also think there's a real case that the reason I say escalations probably can't go away is because of the way that we're looking to do a lot more of this autonomous operations. Imagine you being able to say, when we ask you, users logged in, it's after this hours, it's from this country, and they've authenticated with a host name that doesn't match any hosts that have your Huntress agent on it. So notice that's something we can do now. We can actually see with Entra, and when an RDP, if you're using that, comes in, it comes with a host name. And we can actually compare it against like they're RDPing from a host that shouldn't be allowed. We can actually hit you with an escalation as our idea that says, is this allowed? And allow you to very quickly, whether it's mobile app or in the UI, to say users allowed, countries allowed, time is allowed, that workstation is not. And imagine being able to set what that would do behind the scenes is set all the policies for you at the right level. So you could say at this host level, at this end client, whether that end client be like an organization that you support as an MSP, or maybe sometimes it's like a department. If you're internal IT, you could actually set that sucker and say, for HR, can't do this, or for so-and-so dentistry, they can't do this. And it would set those rules for you. And the idea that if anything happened like that before, the automation would say, rules engine, I already have these rules. I'm going to take this behavior on your behalf automatically at you at night. And it's supposed to minimize that dependency. So we don't think that the idea of escalations can go away. But I love, like, I'm even seeing Michael saying policy recommendation. Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it's like policy inquiry. And we just think that we probably didn't get this something right in the product marketing. So I'm going to go back. Chris, did you see anything in chat? I haven't been able to read it as I was trying to explain that real quick.
Yeah, I mean, there was some stuff a little while back, when we asked like, hey, what do you think? And, a lot of people seem to get it, right? Like Ramon was saying like, hey, we think this is bad, but we're not sure enough to handle it ourselves. Please look into this. And some of that kind of stuff. And that's really what we were going for, right? We talk about you all as our partners because we can't do it all, right? There are some times where we'll see stuff on like a machine, it might be like VNC. And we're like, hey, that seems bad. And then somebody's like, oh, my tech actually added that for this reason and whatever, right? And like, we don't know that. And so like that's where we're trying to figure out like how do we get that information from you? How do we get the things that we need? How do we ask questions? And then from those questions, how do we take automated actions, right? If we see an RMM that's there and we say, hey, this did you intend to put this there? And you say no, we want to create an incident out of that so that we can then go and remediate it and do all these things. If you say yes, we want to basically note that in the system so that the next time we identify this, the system can say, hey, last time they said this one was fine and they're the same thing, so let's move on, right? We don't even need to generate that signal. Huntress SOC doesn't need to see it, and customer doesn't need to see it. Let's move on. So that's really what it is. It's just trying to make a more formal way to get some of that stuff.
All right. Well, I'm looking through here. It looks like there's a lot of like folks that are, I mean, if anybody, I mean, does anybody have like appetite to like maybe if I had like our PMs be able to like gather a little intel or info? Is there anybody on this sucker that maybe I could follow up after this and, just learn a little bit more about how you would handle it or what you're seeing, especially if any of you have had a bad experience. We have these examples in support. All right, Neil, I appreciate, I also see Jeremy Bruce. I don't know if Jeremy's volunteering his tribute the same way, but if any of you have that, we're really looking to get better at this because we know some of it's our fault. We know some of it's value, and that's why we're having a little bit of product confessional today. So, okay. Volunteer, only have positive experiences. Yeah, I mean, either way, I really appreciate. Chris, let's go back and make sure we got this chat so we can make sure that we actually have people that.
Yeah, we always get a copy of the chat, so we'll have somebody go through it and pull out all these.
Yep. And so I didn't really go into the backstory. I think people kind of heard the escalations and what we're doing. I think you understand. And I really, again, appreciate so many volunteers. We will follow up on that sucker. So that's perfect. And again, I hope that helps understand where I don't know. It sucks to admit when you got something wrong, but like, I think this is how we just make it better. We'll have to learn more about this. So sounds good to me. Chris, before we give away the goodies, we don't have to take this thing to a full hour. I'm feeling pretty good. I noticed I missed a question earlier. There was a couple of them. Neil hit us up in Q&A and said, hey, bit of a minor curiosity, but the new layout option in dark mode only seems to work on certain pages. So I think that's the flashbang. And so I think we answered that, Neil, for you that like, is this being worked on to be available across the entire platform or is there something buggy? Do you know anything about that, Chris? Because he literally said it can be a bit jarring when you flip back and forth. I
Yes.
think that's literally what we were sharing through there.
Yeah,
Okay, sweet.
we actually rewrote all of the front end and changed out. So before we were using a front end framework called Bootstrap. We're now going to be using a front end framework called Tailwind. They can do some of the same things, but they're different and the styles are different. And so we figured, hey, if we're going to update the UI and change out a bunch of stuff and add dark mode, we might as well take the time to optimize it and make it better. And so what you'll see is on some of those pages, when you're in dark mode, you see the new version, because actually the new version of the UI is the only one that has dark mode. We didn't bother updating the old version. So that's why it changes between those pages.
There were some questions, Chris, that came up in chat earlier. One was about co-managing. I'm curious how much of the office, of the audience has some sort of co-management internally. I'm wondering what I mean by that is you maybe have enough tenants, or maybe they're lucky enough that they have like maybe one person in internal IT. The reason I'm asking is many people don't know, but Huntress actually has, do you know, like when you log in, you have an ability to see an account. That's what an MSP, a partner, whether you're MSP, MSSP, I'm not getting into that. But as a partner, you have an account, or even if you're internal IT, you have an account, and underneath those, you have organizations. Those are your tenants. But a lot of people don't know we actually have an extra level of multi-tenancy on top of this. It's kind of was originally meant for resellers. It's kind of an extra entity level. So think about an entity has many accounts, and each account can have many organizations. So if any of you have this level of co-management where you actually need somebody to be able to maybe have their own reporting integrations, so they're not getting all your clients, it does have like slightly different contract billing, meaning like it's its own separate account. But if any of you have appetite in this, this is something we can turn on for you today. This most often happens with like an MSP or an MSSP that maybe they have like 2,500 of their own, endpoints or identities, and all of a sudden they land a whale. They land like 1,000 employee hospital. and they're like, we don't know if we're going to be able to keep this 1,000 employee hospital, or their needs are completely different than all of our other 250 employee companies. So we really want to put them on their own account. And you will, with your own single Huntress account, will be able to actually not only manage your account and all your organizations, but you can also give people their own separate accounts with their own integrations and their own ability for you and them to be able to truly co-manage. So I just want to throw out there that like it's not perfect. We're currently working through some of this with like RBAC and being able like role-based access control, but there is some of this stuff of like again, this is more of the feedback. Originally, it was meant for VARs, right? Some of our partners that like only kind of do the sales, but they have a pro services team. And they have the world where sometimes they actually manage the whole client and sometimes they just sell the logo. So I want to share with you, if you have this problem, um, it's not perfect, but it does allow you both multiple contracts. You can actually put them on their own billing interval. The only thing is the accounts don't get the aggregate. So like when you have all your customers that are billed all together, maybe 2,500 endpoints, if they were like only 100, you would be paying the 100 endpoint price and they would be on separate billing terms. So you just have to, it's not right for everybody, but since this is Product Lab and we're talking about crazy wild stuff that we do behind the scenes, this is one of those that we're probably going to have a whole Product Lab like segment on, but maybe we can get a sense of feeling if this is worthwhile. So it looks like there's enough of you asking questions of like what this is, how this works. Okay. It seems like this will be, yeah, we'll definitely help and, open this up and be able to share with this, so I thank you for the feedback on this. And Chris and I will make sure next month has some sort of topic. We could probably even show it. We'll get an actual demo, like a demo time. So instead of talking about it and do screenshots, we'll actually show it in action. Chris, let's give away the stuff. And then D, who asked the question about ITDR for Google Workspace, I got an update for you. So really excited about that. It's not a great update, but it is an update. So Chris, are you cool with us maybe doing a giveaway?
Yeah,
And so people don't have to go over the 1
let's
hour
do it.
mark?
Let's
Okay.
do it.
Our typical ending. Please, team,
Scroll
use
through here.
feedback.huntress.com. I've already got a favorite, Chris, on my end. There was somebody just lighting up chat. It was Matthew, I believe, was just destroying it with good
Matthew
questions.
Adkins.
I think so. If
Yep,
Matthew
I think
hasn't
you're
won this
right.
sucker before, I mean, that was definitely
Not on my list.
you have a list of people? I just thought we used
Yes.
integrity.
Oh, no, I have a list of people.
Okay. I mean, at least for me,
All
I
right, you're
want to
gonna
hook
go
up
with Matthew Adkins. I'm gonna go with Kevin Wall.
Kevin. All right. So
Oh, I lied. Matthew Adkins did win last time. He was like
liar.
the third one.
Oh, see, this is why integrity but it looks like Kevin Wall's one of them. There was some damn good question. Who started asking? I mean, we had some co-managed questions in there. Chris, somebody complimented how good looking you were.
Just trying to butter me up, huh?
I mean, you got to choose. I mean, or do I have to choose?
Well, I chose Kevin Wall, so I think you got to re-choose.
Oh my goodness, Matthew, why didn't you
Oh,
make him
you emailed? Wait, Matthew's saying he emailed Swag and they told him to pound
fuck
sand.
off? They told him what?
To pound sand.
No, they
Get
didn't. If
bent.
they did, we will fix this. And they told me to get bent. All good though. No, Matthew, that's not how this works.
All
It's
right,
not
we'll
all
hook you up.
good. I know a guy who knows a guy at Huntress who has some authority. We will get that sorted. Appreciate you calling us out on that. Um, every time I scroll up, we get another chat. I don't know if this is a broken Zoom feature, but
Yeah, I don't
how about
know.
one of our Android folks that were like soul crushed? Um, I'm curious. Is I not afraid to butcher a name, but is it Yai? Is it Yira? Is it Yai Fonseca? How do I say it? I think you're going with my. I don't
Yeah,
recall seeing you on a product lab,
yeah, I
and I
don't know.
appreciate the newness and participating today. All right. Oh, and look, I was actually in the chat. I'll send you the swag if you tell me how to pronounce the first name. How about that? We'll go back and forth. The trade.
Uh,
Oh boy. All right. All of these are better names, Chris, than Bot Boy. So
Somebody called that out earlier.
did somebody say Bot Boy earlier? What a
Yes,
childish
way
moment.
earlier. If you're unfamiliar, go check Kyle's LinkedIn.
Yair. I like it. Either way, Southern phonetics. I can. That's Bruce. I don't know if I can trust Bruce. But either way, team, appreciate you joining us for this nonsense. Obviously, we keep this going because the feedback is high. Um, if we're doing something right or wrong, I know we do pretty, spotty promotion of this stuff, but one of the things I could ask is if you got value out of these episodes, two things. Leave us the feedback if Zoom prompts you. It actually helps us get an idea if we're doing okay. The other one is the cross promotion. Some of these we get like 1,000+ views on. Some of these
Yeah.
we get like 100, and it's just kind of like spotty of like if Chris and I are being dodgy. So genuinely
Yeah.
appreciate the one
We could
hour.
we could use your
Um,
help too. Like if you go out there and help us promote this and tell other people about it, we'd love it. It would be great for us. More people, the better.
So didn't forget the question, but if anybody has to roll, you're 1 hour in, genuinely hands clapping or praying, appreciate you. For those of you, D, who stayed for the ITDR progress, we internally use Google Workspace. And I think I shared this last month, but I'm going to get really transparent this month. The amount of fidelity we're getting from Google Workspace data and logs is dangerous. It's insufficient to truly release an ITDR product. We have it ready to go. We are done. We made the internal decision that even though there's other people providing Google Workspace solutions in ITDR, we've looked at the data and it will not protect you. And the problem is rough enough that we, through our product leader, Prakash, is working directly with the CEO of Google Cloud, attempting to get this fixed, not just for us, but all vendors. Um, and if it doesn't get fixed, we're probably at Huntress not only going to have to migrate our identity provider away from Google, it'll be to Entra. We'll probably have to do a public blog about it, not just to shame them, but we really are at the point. We do not believe we can actually charge people for this product and feel good about it. Is there any pressure that the masses can do? I think we need to start gathering some of this attention. Voters with that pay go very far. I will share with you, we have friends, I think we said this on maybe last month. We have a lot of old coworkers and even friends that are on the like Mandiant Google Chronicle side of the house. And even they internally are pressuring for better logs. And from what I understand, even them are not able to move some of this identity IDP absence or omission of data and
Mhm.
logs.
Mhm.
So it's not good. There's delays. There's room for this, but it's a hard one because I'll tell you, the team was really excited at Huntress. We do our kind of internal growth based on how many new companies and identities we protect, because that ultimately turns into revenue and it's a really, kind of motivational thing. We've got some folks that are kind of heartbroken and that they put in this work and they're not able to get credit for, protecting more identities. So stinks. It really stinks, but we are, as kind of a security vendor, are not far from that world that we're gonna have to move our own security off of it, because when we really got into it, and now that we've learned so much through M365, we just don't think it's a product that if it doesn't change, we can't stay on. It'll be kind of negligent. That's real. And said on a recorded video. So giving you a real,
Yeah.
idea of how serious that is.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, effectively all they give us is like the IP address. And we know from experience of trying this before with M365, just having that IP address and trying to geolocate it and determine whether or not the user has, traveled too far, too quickly, or, whether it's a known IP address or even that kind of stuff. So much stuff is just like inaccurate, and it results in way too many false positives. And so without more, we can't really make accurate decisions. Thankfully, with Microsoft 365, we get several other attributes that we can use to then try to figure out, is this the same? Have things changed, within the session and all that kind of stuff. We just do not get those with the Google data.
So our PM of ITDR just posted to the presenters, but Rich, can you post that same data to everybody else? I'll read it to them. So the mean time for us to receive logs from Microsoft right now is 8 minutes after this massive bug that we recently had squashed got fixed. The mean time of receipt for Google logs right now is 120 minutes.
Yep.
Cannot
So
provide security detection at that big of a delta.
what that means for you is we wouldn't even know an attacker had logged in for at least 2 hours.
2 hours. So coming straight from us, coming from our data, like that, it's rough, but this is why Product Lab exists. It's to get things like this fixed. Microsoft had an issue a couple of months ago that had sporadic delays, that their mean time was still lower. But if you looked at like the upper quartile of how long, they've had gaps here too. As a community, we can get progress. But again, hopefully with our direct CPO to CEO of Google Cloud, hopefully we can get this fixed with just internal like relationships. Because yeah, I think I could see us getting roasted on Reddit for a 2 hour delay before we reported an incident. That would not be a good look, let alone insufficient stuff that we're missing. So, okay. I'm going to, hopefully I armed some of you. It looks like Neil, maybe if you do have Google Workspace that you now know, that is a real thing. That is not fake. We are Google users ourselves. And again, really appreciate everybody hanging with us. Thanks for a massive, jam-packed episode of Product Lab.